deep in the heart of Texas.
We're in the business of winning.
Don't bet against me.
I don't bet anyway.
Don't lose your life.
All right, everybody. Got another video for you, because that's what we do around here. It's all about you, the people.
And we give it back to you,
The people.
So I first want to say thank you to everybody showing support and love on the video. It means a lot. Got a lot of good feedback. Even to the haters, I appreciate it. You know, there's a few people who commented on some stuff. You know, it's an hour-long video. There's a lot there. So I just took in what people were saying today in the comments section, and I thought we'd go over it. It's more content, gives more context to the video, and, you know, that's what we're all here for, right? But first, I will be debating GOAT James Kingdom. I'm not sure if it'll be A Johnny. I think that's how it's A Johnny, I think. Or B Lee. I don't know which one I'll be debating, but I believe Wednesday, 7 p.m. Central Time, we will be debating MJ versus LeBron. I told them if they want to do MJ versus the entire history of the NBA, that's fine with me too. Bring it. It doesn't matter. So we're going to see how that goes Wednesday. It'll be Wednesday, 7 p.m. Central Time, 8 p.m. Eastern. It'll be on Dart's channel live. I'm sure the other guys will be live streaming it as well. And we'll do the typical format. So it'll be a much more controlled, structured debate. You know, unlike the kind of open panel we did, right? And I'll record it and post it afterwards, right? But if you guys want to watch that, it'll be on Dart's channel. He'll be doing it live, so we'll be there. So that's that. And then I wanted to, as I just said, go over some stuff people commented on, which, you know, again, as I said, I appreciate everyone who's commenting, joining in, whether it's negative or positive. You know, I don't really care. Let's boost those algorithm numbers up. So I appreciate that. But whether positive or negative, some people had some good points that I kind of wanted to go into. Again, I can't shove literally everything about LeBron and MJ into an hour-long video. So I thought I'd go over some of the things people said. Again, whether pro-LeBron or anti-LeBron or pro-MJ or anti-MJ. And we would just go over it. So the main points are someone brought up the rebounding numbers. You know who you are. And again, I appreciate even if you're you know, coming from the other side, it's totally fine. So we'll go over the rebounding numbers, an issue he had. And then I want to go over, I kind of, you know, I didn't put a lot of thought into this, but when I said that the 2016 championship was, you know, possibly or probably the best championship between either player, but that Michael was, you know, I would think all of his championships were just about more impressive. You know, Robin said it's not true, and I remembered when he said that Jimmy High Roller did a video on this, again using some just simple SRS ratings, which is like a strength of record. So we'll watch that too. Again, shout out to Robin, Sports and Fitness. He is right. I was wrong. The 2016 championship is not the most impressive, going off some basic statistics. We'll watch that in the video. And then also the 3-point percentage was brought up, which we'll go into as well. So first, I learned something new today. The NBA, this is the NBA page here. Apparently the NBA uses, so the problem was, he said you shouldn't use 400 games for a minimum. You should use 500 games for a minimum, right? Because if you use 400, it looks bad on LeBron, and I'm being biased. But if you use 500, it looks good for LeBron, and that's not biased, right? And to be honest with you, when I just Googled best rebounding small forwards of all time so I could get a screenshot of it, it automatically did the minimum of 400 games. 400 games is about 5 years of a career. So I just figured, makes sense to me. We'll just go with it. You know, I don't see why that's an issue or anything like that. I wasn't trying to be nefarious or anything. That's what it gave me. That's what I put. really wasn't any more thought than that, right? And I figured 5 years is definitely a good window to see how good someone is at something in the NBA, so I didn't think it'd be an issue, but apparently you have to use 500 games because that's the proper arbitrary number. And someone pointed out, let me get his name here, Robert, you know who you are, and just to be clear, to Ayana, I think I'm saying that right. Again, Ayana, appreciate you commenting. No ill will or anything. So, but Robert came back and actually said the NBA uses 400 games as a minimum for career statistical rankings, which I did not know. I never knew that. So you learned something new. So 400 is the objective number from what I could see. As you can see on the screen here, you either have to have 400 games or meet a certain statistical threshold to be considered for an all-time rank, right? So I didn't know that. It's interesting. So 400 games is the bar, right? 400 games is the minimum unless you get over the numerical value for whatever stat they set the minimum as, right? So for points, it's 400 games or 10,000 points. And let's see, for rebounds, it's 400 games or 4,000 rebounds, right? So that was something I learned today. So we're sticking with the 400 number. I think that settles it. And then the next one I want to do before we watch the finals, the championship ranking video, someone had an issue because the year that I used Jordan's best percentage was one of the years they moved it to 22 feet, which again, I mean, you know, again, nothing nefarious there. I literally just went and picked the highest one. That's really all it was. People are kind of acting like there was more to it than that. You know, Jordan can only play what's put before him. I've done the shooting by distance numbers and video. So I think, you know, everyone's pretty clear where I stand on that. We've acknowledged that LeBron has a slightly better career three-point percentage. And, you know, when it comes to everyone else who shot in that 3-year window, they moved the three-point line up. You know, no one really ever discredits him, but I guess if you use Jordan in his best year and it happens to fall within that window, then it's you're being unfair or something. So that's fine, right? But even not counting that one, again, LeBron or Jordan, if we take that one away, right? LeBron or Jordan have never cracked the top 20 in three-point percentage. Jordan's best year outside of those 3 years is still 38%, and Jordan's is 38%, and I believe LeBron's is 41%. Yeah, in 89-90, Jordan shot 38%, yes. And something else I wanted to say, so that's fine, right? If you guys, again, Jordan fans aren't going to fight you on the three-point percentage game, right? I mean, I have said it from the beginning. No one's really disputed otherwise. I simply, because I said in the video, if they didn't make the top 10, I would just use the next best percentage year, right? And so I just drew that one out of the hat. And, you know, I could, if I really wanted to be cheeky, I would use the year he came back from retirement where he shot 50%, right? But I didn't do that, right? So, again, 38% for his best year. You know, LeBron's is 41%, I think, 406. So, again, it's fine. You can have that one. But one thing I did notice that's interesting, right? In any of the years where Jordan got over 2 attempts per game, right? Again, not counting 94-95 when he came back and he shot 50% and he got 1.9 attempts up. But any year that he got over 2 attempts per game from 3 in his career, he averages 38%, right? So I think that is important to note. Essentially, in his worst years, he's shooting 1 or less just about, right? So again, you're talking about, you know, missing a 1-3 a game in his not the better years, right? And I also found it interesting, for whatever reason, I thought Jordan shot more from 3 when he was with the Wizards. I don't know why I thought that. I guess I just figured he was a little older and maybe would just settle for a 3 a little more often, but he still got under 1 a game, which I thought was a little interesting. But in the years he gets 2 or more threes up a game, he's shooting 38%, right? Which I think kind of goes to show that if it's there, he'll shoot some more. If the defense is giving it to him, he'll hit it. That's not really a shot he's looking for, correct? And I think it just kind of goes to show that when he wanted to shoot it, right, if he was given the opportunity, he shot a pretty good clip, right? And in his down years, when he got like, let's see, not counting the year he came back from retirement, he essentially never got above 1.5 threes attempted per game. Right, yeah. He never got over 1.5 threes per game. So he essentially shot 1 3 a game on his down years. He missed 1 3 a game, right? And so, again, it'd be one thing if Jordan was shooting, 4 or 5, 6, 7 attempts a game and he was hitting 25, 30%, right? That would be one thing. That would be like a little selfish or it wouldn't be the wisest basketball, right? But when he gets 3 attempts or more up a game, he shoots 38%. So that is an interesting caveat, right? Now, shout out to Robin, Sports and Fitness Rants. I had in the video kind of said that the 2016 championship was the most impressive between the two. I kind of just said that on a whim. I kind of thought I was trying to throw some red meat to the LeBron side. And again, it is an impressive championship, as we'll see. But essentially, Robin had said, like, it's not the most impressive. And I thought, well, there's got to be some way statistically and analytically, right, as they like to do, that we can find out in some sort of metric or gauge how hard a particular championship was. And it reminded me that Jimmy High Roller had done a video on this. Again, Jimmy High Roller's like, I would think he's the biggest basketball channel on YouTube, if not one of. And he makes some good videos, like just kind of, he's usually pretty objective. He uses a lot of numbers, stuff like that, which people like. People like to geek out on that stuff. So I thought we'd just watch this video real quick. I got it on 1.75 speed, so it will be quick. It's only an 8-minute, 50-second video, so we'll get through it pretty fast. But he essentially goes through and ranks statistically, right, how hard each championship was.
On Sunday night, the Los Angeles Lakers wrapped up this long and grueling season with a championship, a storybook ending for LeBron, AD, and the Lakers organization. And now that the season is over, I wanted to take a deep dive into something that has been circulating over the last few days. This championship being one of the easiest to win in recent years. Not only did I crunch the numbers to find out if there was any truth to this claim, the result that I got is one you have to see to believe. With LeBron claiming his 4th ring, the tone among NBA fans hasn't changed much. Some people love to see it, others don't. This was about as predictable as it gets, hence the title of my last video. With many NBA fans saying this season was so different and unconventional that this particular championship should have an asterisk next to it. Or, as some call it, the Mickey Mouse Rec League Championship. But looking at...
I will say this, I don't have a problem with the bubble. I don't. A lot of people said it wasn't a real ring because there's no crowd or whatever. I didn't quite see it like that. I thought it was just fine. I mean... yeah, there's no crowd, there's no home away, it's kind of in a vacuum, right? Which, is whatever, but I don't knock the bubble championship just for it being in a bubble, right? I want to make that clear. I am not one of the bubble haters, right? It just, again, you have to play with what the NBA makes you play with, much like NBA's, Jordan's 3-point percentage that 1 year. It is what it is. If we're going to start doing this, right, like, oh, well, Jordan shot his best year from the 22-foot 3-point line. Well, what do you want him to do about that, right? And if you're going to knock the bubble championship, it's sort of, what do you want them to do about that? There's, you can only do what the NBA sort of puts in front of you, right?
At this from an objective point of view, where does this championship run rank all time in terms of difficulty? What championship team had the hardest run to a title, and which championship team had the easiest run? Well, I started this search for the ultimate championship run and quickly came across this Reddit post from 4 years ago. This Reddit user came up with a simple way of measuring the difficulty of a team's title run by using an advanced stat called the Simple Rating System, or SRS. This stat measures a team's margin of victory throughout the season adjusted for strength of schedule. Basically, this stat quantifies how good a team is. For example, this season the Bucks had the highest SRS in the entire league of 9.41, followed by the Clippers, Lakers, and Raptors. Just like any other stat, it has its flaws, but...
it is crazy to be almost 3 points higher in an SRS. That's pretty nuts.
Overall, it's a great indicator of how great or terrible a team is. He then added up the total SRS values for every team that each championship team beat in the playoffs.
Just so y'all can see it.
For example, in 2017, the Warriors beat the Blazers, Jazz, Spurs, and Cavaliers. Add up the SRS scores for each of those teams, and the difficulty of the Warriors' 2017 championship run is 13.77. So now that we understand how this all works, here's the list of
You got to realize the flip side of this coin here is that the Cavs got to the finals with a really low SRS.
The Warriors' 2017 championship run is 13.77. So now that we understand how this all works, here's the list of championship runs ranked.
What do we see here, boys? I see someone at number 3 and someone at number 7. Looks like Robin was right. Just going off this, right? Again, they'll say why this doesn't matter or what have you, correct? But again, you got the Bulls here at 3, got the Cavs at 7. Again, and the only reason this 7, I started to think about it even more. The only reason this one is so high, I like pointing at stuff. The only reason this one is so high is because they beat that 73-win Golden State team. And again, it's impressive coming down 3-1. Draymond had to get suspended for a game. And of course, Kyrie bailed him out in Game 6. But again, the only reason this is so high is because they beat that 73-win team. This is who they went through in those playoffs. 44-win Detroit, 48-win Atlanta, 56-win Toronto. And if you want to look at the roster here for Toronto, you had DeRozan. DeRozan was balling out, doing his thing. And then you got Kyle Lowry, Luis Scola. He's the hometown favorite here in Houston. But that's about it. I mean, this was back when, again, I know DeRozan was playing really good at this time. But again, he was no LeBron, right? He was no Kyrie, or him and Kyrie might have, you could, depending on your preference of flavor of basketball, right? You could say DeRozan and Kyrie were kind of cancel each other out, right? But Kyle Lowry is their next best player. Yeah, I mean, it's just, again, for people who don't remember, right? The East from top to bottom, let's just say 1 through 8, right? Playoff teams just were nowhere near as impressive as the West, even into the 2010s, right? And we all know the 2000s, the West was absolutely stacked. But again, this is what the Cavs had to go through to get to that finals to begin with.
In terms of difficulty, with the 1995 Rockets having the most difficult.
And I'm not tearing anyone down, right? I'm not tearing anyone down. I'm just pointing out what it is. I'm making critiques and observations. It's okay.
Path to a championship, and the 1987 Lakers having the easiest path to a championship. This list only.
Oh, maybe y'all can't. I'm sorry. Hold on. Wait. Let me get out of the way here. Oh man, that hurts. 2 out of the bottom 4.
Includes championships dating back to the 1984 season, since that is when the
2 out of the bottom 4. Ouch. And then throw in the 2012 Heat here. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so you got the Cavs at 7. That's 1. The Heat here. His next best is 22. And then he's got these 2 right here out of the bottom 4. And again, this is with him blowing 2011. My Mavs took that one from him. They literally took his cookies. He had to take his ball and go home. But you got the Bulls at number 3. Again, we'll throw, the Cavs here at 7. I still think it's a little deceptive, but again, it is what it is. Then you got the Bulls again at 10. So he has 2 out of the top 10, 4 in the top 15, 1 down here at 25. And actually his first championship, which was against a pretty solid LA squad. I know Kareem wasn't there, but that's his easiest one.
16-team playoff system was introduced. So with the last.
And this is what I find funny, right? So I had someone commenting like, oh, it's easy to win when you play less skilled players or you play JV players. Like, what is this? What is this? Give me a break.
37 championship teams listed. Where do the 2020 Lakers land? All the way down at 35th. In the last 37 seasons, only 2 championship teams faced easier.
Because so we have that debate coming up. I'm sure this is going to be one of their things, like, oh, well, those 6 don't mean as much as our 4 or what have you.
Competition than the Lakers faced in this season's playoffs. In my last video, I talked about how the Lakers' path to a title this season was no easier than any other championship teams. And I literally could not have been more wrong. Not only.
So Jimmy High Roller admitting he was wrong.
Was their path easy? It was nearly the easiest path of the last 37 seasons. But let's take a deeper look into some of these numbers. The first thing that jumped out at me was that the Shaq and Kobe Lakers three-peat featured 3 of the top 5 most difficult paths to a championship. That is unbelievable. And even crazier is that in 2001, the Lakers nearly swept the playoffs, going 15-1, while facing the second most difficult opponents in the process. So if you've ever wondered what team was the most dominant in the last 35 seasons, I think there is your answer. Now, if we highlight each decade, then we can see which 10-year span featured the most difficult runs to a championship. And for the most part, each decade had similar levels of difficulty, except the 80s. But this was because for most of the 80s, the league only had 23 teams, which meant a 16-team playoff format featured many teams with losing records. Simply put, the league was still good, but it was super top-heavy with bad teams making the playoffs. With that being said, it's still shocking just...
I brought this up in my video in LeBron's, and again, I don't... The whole Jordan didn't start winning until Pippen. It really baffles me that people even think that's a good talking point or a good thing to bring up, right? As if anyone could ever win alone besides Dirk in 2011, obviously, as he put the entire NBA in his rearview mirror by himself and was a buzzsaw going through the playoffs. Besides Dirk in 2011, I'm joking, of course. Besides Dirk in 2011, nobody wins on their own. It's just so silly. It really baffles me that people think that is a knock on Jordan. Like, oh, you needed another all-star to win a championship, yeah, everyone does, man. Like, there's only been like 6 or 7 times players didn't win with another all-star, right? And so I mean, it really boggles the mind sometimes. And even like the one time, you look at the one time LeBron won with another all-star, he had another top 10 player in the league in Anthony Davis. And then in 2016, right, Kyrie should have been an all-star, and Love was essentially an all-star too, right? So nobody wins. Like, no one literally puts their team on their back and wins by themselves, right? Even Jordan, right? It really boggles the mind that people think that is some kind of like top rope elbow to be like, well, Jordan didn't win until he got another good player. It's like, all right, man, if that's what you want to stick to, that's fine.
How easy it was to get deep into the playoffs in the 80s. So, you know how the NBA has been a bit one-sided throughout recent history in terms of talent level in each conference? Well, this next graphic highlights just that. When graphing the most difficult paths to a championship using SRS scores on the y-axis, you can see that
oh yeah, we can go back real quick.
Just that. It's been a bit one-sided throughout recent
history. So this is by the decades, the 2010s. Again, for everyone who says the 2010s is so much better or harder, they're essentially the same as the 90s. The 2000s have a definite advantage, it looks like, right? But again, these 3 decades are separated by less than one point of an SRS score, right? So, again, relative to competition and things like that, it's essentially the same for everyone. The 80s, of course, is a lot different. Like he said, you essentially had the big dogs at the top still that Michael was fighting against, right? So,
in terms of talent level in each conference, well, this next graphic highlights just that. When graphing the most difficult paths to a championship using SRS scores on the y-axis, you can...
Man, I had that debate too with my friend Ian, and how we debated the... I think he took the 95 Rockets, and I took the 2011 Mavericks. I'm glad he didn't... He kind of mentioned it in his debate, how like everyone was a 60-win team, essentially, that they went through. But I'm glad he didn't find this stat, because this would have been a good one.
Well, this next graphic highlights just that. When graphing the most difficult paths to a championship using SRS scores on the y-axis, you can see that the West has won 4 of the 5 toughest championships since 1984. The West has also won 12 of the 20 most difficult titles in the last 37 seasons. 4 of those 8 titles from the East coming at the hands of Michael Jordan and the Bulls. You can see that the West has won 4 of the 5 toughest championships since 1984. The West has also won 12 of the 20 most difficult titles in the last 37 seasons. 4 of those 8 titles from the East coming at the hands of Michael Jordan and the Bulls. Here are Michael Jordan's 6 titles. Here are Kobe's 5 championships, every single one of them having a very high degree of difficulty. And here are LeBron's 4 championships. Now,
that's just because the West was brutal, dude. The West was so brutal. There's an interesting video out there on Dirk. I'm not going to watch it now, but there's an interesting video out there on Dirk about, like, on average, he had the hardest playoff competition, essentially, I don't know of anyone, but like of his time, of his era. He had the absolute hardest. I can't remember exactly how the video framed it, but it was something like this. Like Dirk's playoff competition was higher than just about anyone else on average, right? And really tells you how deep the West was. In any other given time or era, you know, someone like Dirk probably gets to a few more finals and maybe wins another one. But just going up against the Spurs and, you know, the Lakers of the 2000s, it was just absolutely brutal.
Now, strictly considering how challenging each of these championship runs were, which collection of championships looks more impressive? At face value, Kobe's rings are easily the greatest collection of tough titles in the modern NBA. Now consider the fact that Mike and LeBron received Finals MVP in every one of their championship seasons, and Kobe won the award just 2 out of 5 times. And for some more reference, here are Magic Johnson's last 3 championships.
Yeah, saying Kobe's 5 rings is a little misleading, right? I mean, let's not forget Shaq won that three-peat. I'm not saying Kobe wasn't stellar, that Kobe didn't pull his own weight. He did. As still a relative youngster in the NBA, he played far above and beyond probably what people expected him. But let's not forget, right? 3 of those rings are Shaq's rings, right? For the most part, right? For the most part.
Championships. I've said it before, and I cannot stress this enough. Not every championship is built the same. And when you start considering other variables like who did they play with, was there any significant injuries, and how well did they play in the finals, you begin to see just how ridiculous it is to base the foundation of your GOAT debate on purely how many rings a player has. Most would agree that...
Remember, so this is now also, you could just simply do straight up math, 6 is greater than 4, right? But now it's not even that. It's that these 6, I'll even drop off 2 of them, right? I'll drop off the last 2. And those 4, those Jordan's toughest 4 are still, you know, way harder than LeBron's 4, even looking at this, right? So, again, now it's not even about 6 over 4. It's about 4. You could probably, if you took, let's say you drop their best 2, right? Or their best 1 each. Jordan's 4, next best 4, or his bottom 4 are better than LeBron's 4, right? Or if you took, let's say, yeah, Jordan's like 3 or whatever that average is of the ones, if we drop off their best title each, Jordan's average of competition is still way higher than LeBron's. And he's got the harder one. He's got essentially, yeah, he's got 5 of the top of the next hardest 6 between the 2 of them.
5 rings beats 4. But what if the 5 rings were won on a relatively easy path, while the 4 were won on a more difficult path? And before we move on, I just want to point out that this era of the NBA, the 90s and early 2000s, was easily the most competitive time in basketball. Just something to think about. So after seeing just how different each title run...
Which makes sense, right? The 90s, what you saw in the 90s was the salary cap era taking hold, and the playing field had been leveled or flattened, right? Which, again, is a better litmus test of who is truly better. Who is truly the best in the league when we're talking about, you know, leveling out the competition, right? And, you know, the Celtics partly started it, but largely, you know, LeBron went to Miami to try and win rings, right? And so you kind of have this flattening out, and then you get the Celtics, you know, some people say yes and no on the Celtics super team thing, kind of your opinion, right? But you have the Celtics and the Heat, then they start to like change the landscape again, right? So especially when you're part of the reason why, again, the competition was level and it started going out like this, and you still can't win more rings, not a good look.
And can be one surprising aspect of this experiment that...
There's really no excuses, right? I mean, there really is no excuses. Going 2-4 in Miami, well, you know, losing to San Antonio is one thing, right? But losing in 2011, like that's a dagger, dude. That is, in terms of when we're trying to compare people in the finals and how good they play and at the crunch time, and you got largely outplayed by 2 of your teammates. You had a single digit game. Like, good God, man, that stinks in here, bro.
That jumped out at me was the fact that the best 2 teams don't always end up in the finals. In fact, rarely do the best 2 teams end up in the finals. For example, in the 2001...
Basketball is a game of matchups, you know. It's you can have a great regular season team, but all it takes is that one team you run into who's either got your number or they have preferable matchups, right? They have a stopper for your one guy, or they're strong in areas that you're not, right? And they're still okay in the areas that you're good at, even though they might be a little weaker, right? It's all about matchups.
In playoffs, the Lakers faced off against the 76ers in the finals. This was possibly the biggest finals mismatch in recent history, but NBA fans knew this at the time. However, just how big of a mismatch this was is absurd. On their path to the finals, the Lakers beat the Blazers, the Kings, and the Spurs. All of these teams had a higher SRS score than the 76ers. Of course, this is a rather simple metric to grade how good a team is.
Dang, man, that's crazy, right? See that? They played a harder team, and just strength of schedule. They played a harder team in the first round than the finals.
But it is not a stretch to say that the Lakers faced better teams at every stage leading up to the finals than they did in the finals. In 2018, the Warriors beat the Spurs, the Pelicans, and the Rockets on their way to the finals to face the Cavs. Each of these Western Conference teams being
Oh, bro. What is this? What is this? Woo. Woo. Man, talk about a cakewalk to the finals, man. Talk about a cakewalk to the finals.
statistically better than the Cavaliers. So think to yourself, how many players and teams have been eliminated before the finals that could have made the finals if they were just in a different conference? How many NBA championships were decided in the Western Conference? This is why, although I'm a certified LeBron fanboy, I don't put as much weight.
Come again, excuse me?
How many NBA championships were decided in the Western Conference? This is why, although I'm a certified LeBron fanboy, I don't put as much weight into his 10 finals appearances as other.
Oh, I forgot about this part.
Fans. I have to consider the fact that
Let's
during
hear it
my
one more
overall made
time.
the finals if they were just in a different conference.
One more time.
How many NBA championships were
Turn it up. Turn it up. Let's clip this. Send it.
decided in the Western Conference? This is why, although I'm a certified LeBron fanboy, I don't put as much weight into his 10 finals appearances as other fans. I have to consider the fact that during those finals runs, the East was considerably worse than the West, and if LeBron and the Cavs were in the West, they may not have even saw the finals. So just how
Ouch, man. Shit. LeBron fanboy just from the top rope, dude. Yeah, remember the OKC, the year they beat OKC, they had 47 wins, and Miami had 44 wins, barely over 500.
How easy was the Lakers' path to a championship this season? Quite frankly, it was historically easy. But the craziest part about all of this is that in 20 years, no one will care about the details. Just like how no one cares that 3 of Magic's 5 rings were won on easy paths. Just like how the 99 Spurs snagged a relatively easy ring during the most difficult era of the NBA. Just like how MJ's path to his first 2 rings were immensely easier than the path to his last 4. It doesn't matter because it doesn't change anything. Regardless of how you were immensely easier than the path to his last 4.
Let's take one more look at this, right? So, two out of the bottom 4 here are LeBron at 3rd and 4th from the bottom, respectively, right? He doesn't have the bottom 2, but he's got the next 2. That's pretty bad. 2012 Heat is still essentially at the middle. They're actually in the bottom half. And then you have the Cavaliers win, right? Which, again, the only reason the SRS is so high on this one is because they beat Golden State, not because of the overall total path, right? Because they beat that one team that had a 73-win record, which, you know, kudos to them, whatever. Took Draymond Green getting suspended a game and Kyrie hitting the big shot in Game 6. But, again, on average, Jordan has between them, right? Jordan's got 5 out of the top 7 between them. And I don't know, man. That's just a tough... How do you get over that, right? He's got 4 out of the top 5 of the hardest championships between them. 2 in the top 10, 4 in the top 15 of the last 37 years. So, I don't know, man. This is... I don't know how you get around that.
It doesn't matter because it doesn't change anything. Regardless of how you get it, a ring is still a ring. And although they aren't all built the same, they all shine just as bright. Hope you all enjoy, and as always, until next time.
All right, another thing I wanted to look at here. Let me find it first. Again, you guys were all over the comments today. I appreciate it. And someone had a good one. Yeah, again, like, if you want to adjust the way I did the All-Stars, that's fine. Like, that was kind of, you could go back and forth with that. But it just kind of roughly showed, right, that the competition between them and what they had was pretty even. I want to find, here we go. Comparing overall playoff competition. This is from Robert again. I appreciate Robert. Robert and, hope I say this right, Dreamtmesis. Sorry if that you're supposed to pronounce that some other way. It looks like a random handle. Robert and Tim Nick. Tim Nick, I see him a lot. Appreciate a lot of people were dropping a lot of good stuff today. Comparing their overall playoff competition, playoff totals. Jordan, 37 playoff series. This is who they played against. 14 first team, 10 second team, 10 third team, 15 all-defensive first team, 17 all-defensive second team, 2 sixth man of the year, 4 defensive player of the year, 3 MVPs, 4 runner-up MVPs. LeBron in 53 playoff series played 10 first team, so that's less, 18 second team, 19 third team, so he played a decent amount of second and third team more, but less first team. 16 all-defensive first team, so only one more all-defensive first team selection. 21 all-defensive second team, that's only 4 more, right? And again, he's got like 75% more playoff games. 1 sixth man of the year, 6 defensive player of the years. 4 of those were Dwight Howard, I'm sure, who we lost to whenever he was a higher seed. 3 MVPs and 1 runner-up MVP. So again, it's relatively even, minus maybe the second and third team. But again, playing so many more playoff series, it's not that impressive when you put it into that account, right? So even when looking, and I'm definitely going to use this Wednesday, even when looking at some of the more like top tier players, right? It's not, on average, it's still not as impressive. And then we have Jordan and LeBron against the Eastern Conference. 31 playoff series for Jordan, 37 playoff series for LeBron. So again, we'll have this is a much closer comparison. Jordan played 9 All-NBA first team again, this is all according to him, which I'm sure, even if it's not right, he's only off by like 1 or something. I don't know, but I trust him it's right. Jordan, 31 playoffs. This is just the Eastern Conference, which LeBron spent the majority of his time in, right? And had 9 out of his 10 finals runs and 3 out of his 4 championships. 31 playoff series for Jordan. 9 All-NBA first team compared to LeBron's 3 All-NBA first team. 8 All-NBA second team compared to LeBron's 8 All-NBA second team. 8 All-NBA third team compared to 14 All-NBA third team for LeBron. So in total, that's 23 to 25. So Jordan playing not only more in general, but more on average too. Much more compact talent he's facing. So yeah, he says 25 All-NBA to 23 All-NBA. And again, he's facing 9 All-NBA first team to LeBron's 3. And of course, in the first and second team, he's facing a much harder talent, which again is a much better crop of talent, right? For Jordan, 12 all-defensive first team. For LeBron, 9 all-defensive first team. For Jordan, 15 all-defensive second team. For LeBron, 14 all-defensive second team. 2 sixth man of the year for Jordan, 0 sixth man of the year for LeBron. 3 defensive player of the years for Jordan, 4 defensive player of the years for LeBron. Again, I think all of those are Dwight Howard. Maybe I'm missing one or something. I don't think he means 4 different individuals. I think he's just talking about in general who won the award. I believe Dwight Howard won it 4 times. Oh, a 3-time defensive player of the year. So I'm missing someone here. Joakim Noah? What? Did he? I totally forgot about that. Joakim Noah or Tyson Chandler? Kevin Garnett? Okay, so it could have been one of those guys. I was trying to remember who it was. Jordan played 1 MVP and 1 runner-up VP. LeBron played 1 MVP, no runner-up MVPs. In Jordan's first 4 seasons, there wasn't an All-NBA third team, so he probably would have ended up edging out LeBron for more All-NBA third teams as well. So yeah, I mean, guys are bringing good points. That's another good one, right? Again, Jordan played with hand checking early in his career. The game's much more wide open now when we're talking about scoring and having the ability to operate. The offensive rating of the league never increased more from one season to the next than it did the year after hand checking was banned. So again, I mean, that's kind of proof. Again, I'm taking everything at these guys' words. I assume it's true. In the last season of hand checking, the leading scorer averaged 28 points per game. The second and third leading scorer averaged 24 points per game. The next season, the leading scorer was 30 points per game, with the next highest players averaging 27.6, 27.2, 26.1, 26, 25.7, 25.5, 24.5, 24.1, which again is all above the third leading scorer the year previously. And then even in the next season, they went up even more. And essentially you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You had 12 players averaging more than the third leading scorer in the last year of hand checking. So again, that's a big thing too. Good stuff. Let's see if there's any... Oh yeah, I forgot that LeBron did play with Ilgauskas when he was an All-Star in 2005, and they didn't even make the playoffs. So a team had 2 All-Stars. They didn't even make the playoffs in the Eastern Conference. So then Ayana comments again. Thank you, Ayana. It's fine. I always love pushback. You know, makes us stronger. Cleveland went 42. Talking about the year in 2005 that LeBron and Z made the All-Star team. Cleveland went 42-40 and missed the playoffs that season. He said, meanwhile, MJ made the playoffs in 85 with the 38-44 record. Then in 87, MJ made the playoffs with a 40-42 record. The Bulls then made the playoffs in 86 with a 30-52 record. Oh, but that's the year MJ only played 18 games and he got hurt. And essentially they're saying clearly it was a lot easier to make the playoffs back in the mid to late 80s than the 2000s East. Yeah, technically, it's all about how you want to slice and dice it, right? So if the difference in number of teams in the league would make it actually harder to get a good record. Again, yeah, this goes to the top being a lot stronger than the middle and bottom. During Jordan's time, no 8 seed ever had a winning record. In fact, Jordan's 87 Bulls had the best record ever by an 8 seed when there were 23 teams in the league. And technically, yeah, you could say, depending on how you want to look at it, right, with there being 30 teams in LeBron's era, that's a lot more lower tiered game or lower tiered teams, right? I mean, it's all about how you could slice that either way, I suppose. The other thing I want to talk about that I missed, I had brought up Jordan as a point guard and how that would kind of how that might look if he handled the ball like a lot of the better players do today on their teams respectively. Now I brought up an 11-game stretch, but it was actually 24 games that he played point guard in the 89 season. There was just a stretch of games where he had 10 triple-doubles in 11 games, including 7 straight. But for those 24 games total, he averaged 30 points, 11 assists, 9 rebounds, 2.5 steals, 0.9 blocks, 50% from the field, 89% free throw. So, again, put the ball in Jordan's hand and let him kind of operate like players do today, and his numbers would be much more gaudy. And, again, just looking at that, if he played today, you know, a lot of these other numbers, essentially the rebounds and assists that LeBron averages compared to Jordan, would either flip the other way or they'd be non-existent, essentially. Yeah, and like you also think if you account for pace of play, you know, essentially if you look at, I did the math on LeBron and Jordan's points per attempt, right? So essentially every time they shoot the ball or attempt a shot, essentially for every 100 shots that they shot, right? LeBron, playoffs or a regular season, LeBron is getting 5 or 6 more points per 100 shots, right? So for every 100 shots, he's only getting 5 or 6 more points, right? And again, if you take into things like pace, why pace? Well, pace, if you're going up and down more, more opportunity for stats just overall, right? And again, more than likely, especially for someone like a Jordan or LeBron, right? Freak athletes, right? Or just really good athletes. That's a lot of not a lot of layups, but that's a few more times you're getting an easy bucket here or there. Again, LeBron shoots more threes. So, I mean, essentially getting 5 or 6 more points per every 100 shots isn't really, when you think about kind of adjusting and whatnot. Again, if we adjusted for the pace of play in today's game, the totals and the averages, besides points, Jordan still wins that, right? And steals and whatnot. But we're talking about another six possessions. I think it's something like that. I'll have to get this straight before the debate. But it's like another 6 possessions, 5, maybe 4 or 5, 6 possessions through the years of the early 2000s to now. Jordan probably closes that gap even more, right? So that's my video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I just want to do a follow-up. I appreciate everyone who comments. We're all here to sharpen the knives, right, and get our basketball knowledge even tighter, right? So, again, everybody, even the people who were disagreeing with me or pointing out certain things, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. So, that's it. I just wanted to recap, add some footnotes, some reference links at the end of the book to my video that I thought were interesting, some things that people brought up in the comment section. So, again, I think the rebounding minimum 400 is more than fair, more than objective. Robin brought up that he didn't think that the 2016 championship was the hardest or the best. He was right. We watched the video. Talked about the three-point line a little bit. Again, even if we sort of remove that, Jordan's best year is 38% and LeBron's is 41%. That's fine. We looked at when Jordan shoots over, over 2.5 attempts or 2 attempts or more per game. He's shooting 38%. I think that's interesting, right? It at least shows that, okay, well, Jordan in these years wasn't that good. Well, what years were those? Those were years he didn't even really shoot one. He shot a 3 a game, right? So, again, I can understand if he was getting 5, 6, 7 threes up and he's hurting his team, but he's only shooting 1 3 a game. That's why I think that the 3-point argument, it's not really that big of a deal, right? So, went over that. And then kind of went over some of the more competition here at the end and things like that. So appreciate everyone's feedback. You guys, again, I'm glad you guys liked the video. I had a lot of fun doing it, and I obviously learned a lot, right? So again, debate Wednesday, 7 p.m. Central Time. I probably won't do another video until then. Got to get ready, got to sharpen the blades. So that's it, and I'll see you guys on the next one.